Bonafide Reformer, Episode 8, A Reformer's Perspective on Water. Today I'm blowing the whistle on the water industry in the UK, which is, by all accounts, in crisis. We have endless reports of pollution incidents, rivers choked with waste, and companies passing pollution tests that were never conducted. After 3 decades of privatised water, it's clear that the current system has failed to deliver on the most basic promises of stewardship and public service. Yet, renationalisation, with all of the costs and bureaucratic inefficiencies it could entail, is hardly a straightforward solution. What we need is a balanced approach, one that combines public accountability with operational efficiency. So, what might a truly reformative approach to water management look like? The water crisis we face today can't simply be solved by flipping the switch back to public ownership. A hybrid model could prove more effective, where the infrastructure remains publicly owned, while day-to-day operations are conducted by private firms under rigorous performance-based contracts. Imagine a system that borrows from Scottish Water, which remains publicly owned and reinvests its profits, yet operates with an efficiency and responsiveness often attributed to the private sector. Such an arrangement would allow us to reap the benefits of private sector operational efficiencies while ensuring that profits are directed towards infrastructure improvements, environmental protections, and customer service. In this model, water becomes a public asset once again, a resource managed for the people rather than a cash cow milked for dividends. The net zero target has become an almost quasi-religious mandate imposed on every sector, often without regard to cost or practicality. What if, instead of setting arbitrary carbon targets, we focused on immediate, tangible environmental outcomes? A practical approach would emphasise pollution control and ecosystem health directly, cleaner rivers, reduced sewage discharge, biodiversity protection. Real-time, publicly accessible monitoring could show communities exactly what is being discharged into their water and whether the companies they rely on are meeting their obligations. A reform-centric water policy might pursue this route, prioritising visible and measurable results rather than pandering to an agenda that treats carbon emissions in isolation from the actual health of our natural environment. The water industry could be held to account on pollution, water quality, and local environmental impact, placing responsibility squarely on those who fail to meet standards that the public deserves. It's a scandal of contemporary Britain that water companies are allowed to regulate themselves on pollution, with oversight that relies primarily on self-reporting. This has led to repeated failures and a culture of obfuscation. We need independent oversight, unannounced inspections, real consequences for breaches, and absolute transparency in reporting. An independent body should be empowered to monitor pollution, water quality, and infrastructure upkeep, publishing regular reports that are open to the public. And let's not forget penalties. If a water company fails to meet the standards, it should face substantial fines and sanctions. Accountability shouldn't be an option, it should be a mandate, and this can't be left to the companies themselves. The days of water firms monitoring their own outputs must end if we are to have a system that serves the public rather than itself. The UK's water infrastructure is crumbling, and urgent investment is required, yet the public purse, particularly in this economic climate, is stretched thin. Public-private partnerships could be a sensible solution, with the public sector retaining a degree of control and oversight while enabling private capital to fund critical projects. This approach could allow for much-needed infrastructure upgrades like modernising treatment plants and reducing leakage rates without incurring the full cost to taxpayers. Of course, PPPs must be structured carefully to ensure that public interests come first. Contracts should have clear provisions for service quality, environmental protections, and customer care. Under this arrangement, the public sector could retain control over long-term planning and asset management while utilising private investment to support day-to-day operations and capital improvements. Perhaps the greatest failing of the current system is its centralisation, the sense that water is managed by distant corporations more interested in dividends than in rivers. A reform-centric water policy, could seek to decentralise, setting up regional oversight boards that empower communities. Local bodies would be more attuned to the specific needs of their regions, whether that's pollution control in an industrial area or flood resilience in a vulnerable community. This regional oversight would bring accountability close to home. Community representatives would sit on these boards, giving local voices a say in water management. Such a model could bridge the gap between national standards and local needs, making water management a matter of public service once again. A reform approach to water management would bring a breath of fresh air to a stagnant and scandal-ridden industry. The goal is simple: a water system that balances accountability with efficiency, a model that serves the people and protects the environment. It's a vision that recognises water as a public asset, not just a line on a shareholder report, and that uses private sector expertise where it works, while upholding public interests. Water is our most basic resource. It belongs not to corporations or governments, but to the people. By focusing on a hybrid approach that combines public ownership with operational efficiency, we might just find a way to end this era of water mismanagement and make our rivers, reservoirs and coastlines something we can be proud of again. Thank you for listening to this article. It was first published on X on 30th of October 2024 at Knoll Reforms.